This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1781, Comic Talk, Comic Timing Crossover.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is...
I'm Ian Levinstein.
And I'm Chris Everly.
Comic Geek Speak.
Welcome, one and all, to the show. And, oh, hey, it's just two of us. Wait, never mind. There's a lot more of us this episode. As I rallied together the troops for this one, as Murd is Christmas Barn unavailable, and Shane had business to attend to as well. So we bring in some of the Comic Timing crew for this episode. First off, my regular co-host on Comic Timing, Mr. Brent Cassina. Brent, what's going on?
You know, usually you tell your wife you're cheating on her before you introduce her to the person you're cheating on them with.
I mean, it's not you, it's me.
It's good to be here.
Good to be here as well. Donovan Morgan Grant joins us as well, regular on Comic Timing and various other podcasts. Donovan, what's going on?
Thank you very much. Good evening. It's an honor and a privilege to be here tonight.
Our pleasure to have you as well. And returning to the airwaves of Comic Geek Speak for the first time in a while, even though he was on literally the last episode of Comic Timing that was released, one of our favorite artists and one of the most jovial man in comics when he's not ranting, Mr. Jamal Igle.
You know what? I'm passing up the DNC convention for this, so it better be good.
Oh! Isn't it so much easier to watch it like on demand where you can skip through all the bullshit, though? I mean, come on.
Oh, absolutely. I don't even, like, I can pick out the speeches that I want to watch. It's beautiful.
That's what I did this morning, actually. I sat down and I'm like, oh, okay, great. I could do this, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. It's delightful. The last time you were on Comic Geek Speak was back in, if the numbers tell the truth, 2013. So it has been that long. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was an off the racks, and you were talking about Molly Danger.
Wow. 2013?
Okay. Yep.
Jeez.
Episode
Now I feel good about my podcast.
Yep, October 28th, 2013, episode 1433. And it was the first quote-unquote post-pants episode. So that was the first one with Jamie in the chair.
Oh.
Oh, man.
That was glorious. That was a glorious 6 months.
Yes, it was. 100% was. But we're gathered here today to talk about what we love, and that's comics. And a lot of stuff has happened over the last couple of weeks. Not all great. Some good, some not all great. A lot of layoffs, and that's hard to take in. Most of the talk has been DC Comics of late, and it unfortunately fell on them once again, as DC and most of Warner Media had a whole bunch of layoffs over the last 2 weeks. I feel like it's been that long.
Last Monday.
Yeah, I mean, it's been sort of like this kind of slow trickle because of the slowdown. So I think that prior to this, because you have to remember, I think it was like a month or two before Dan DiDio got fired.
Right.
So smart money would have seen this coming in some way, shape, or form. Anytime that you have a new management team coming in, there's usually layoffs of some kind at a company. It's a very rare situation when somebody comes in and, the status quo remains, and the fact that they cleaned house so completely. I think almost everybody that they fired was somebody who worked directly either with Dan, with Jim, or both.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Bob Harris for one, in the editor-in-chief role. We had
Bobby Chase.
Yeah, Bobby Chase.
And Canals.
Yep. Yeah, and pretty much the entire DC Direct line went bye-bye after this, and we don't know 100% who got let go from DC Universe as well, but I know, from the interview with Jim Lee and from other sources that what we've all been foretelling for months now is essentially going to be happening, which is anything that was video from DC Universe is eventually going to migrate over to HBO Max. And then there's going to be something else in the place of DC Universe, whether it's still called that or not, which is going to be pretty much comic book only. Which I'm glad at least they're planning on keeping that around in one way or another, because they put a lot of work and a lot of effort into that site.
Yeah, I know.
Which Donovan can attest to.
Yeah. Because for those who don't know, I work as a freelance content contributor on DC Universe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, you're only privy to what you're privy to, Donovan, but I assume you were told that, for the most part, that's staying as is, right? Like that they're still going to be working on that in one form or another?
Well, I can say it being over a week since this has happened, we've been told very little.
Got it.
It's been extremely sparse, but we have been told essentially that, is business as usual. DC Universe is remaining, and us people who kind of write articles and stuff, there's no, as of right now, whether this means the rest of the year or even into 2021, there's no sense that they're going to change that.
Yeah.
We really don't know how far to kind of take that word, but as far as we're aware, yeah, the major change is the migration from the streaming content to HBO Max. Everything else in terms of what content that remains, whether it be comic books or articles, is still going to be there. Because a lot of people were really trying to carve out the tombstone for DC Universe. I think maybe even this time last year, but it's still a thing that Warner Brothers sees value in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I personally, I saw the tea leaves the minute that they said that Doom Patrol was going to premiere on both Max and DC Universe. That was a sign to me that that something was up, and then Stargirl getting announced as being just CW and not on DC Universe.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, because that was kind of huge. It airing on CW actually wasn't even that big of a non-plus to me. Just the fact that they straight out said yeah, there's going to be a season 2, and it's not on DC Universe anyway. That's
I can
great.
just imagine that Stargirl's going to take a hit in terms of budget and production quality next season, because the one thing that DC Universe had was the originals they had, and the production quality was incredible compared to what's on CW.
Yeah.
And
No,
you look at
but
Supergirl season 1 to season 2, and that took a little bit of a dive.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm imagining that because it's going over to HBO Max, they would actually be able to maintain the budget that they already have. So
Right.
it's not just going to be exclusively on the CW.
Yeah.
I thought it was exclusive to CW.
Stargirl will be exclusively CW, I think, probably until the season ends, and then like Batwoman, it'll end up on HBO Max after that.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll point to as an example of higher production values, Black Lightning. To me, Black
Right.
Lightning has always seemed a better. I don't know if better is quite the right word, but a higher production value production than the other CW shows, and it's also based out of Atlanta, which is where Stargirl was filming to begin with. So hopefully that means that they're not going to move them to Vancouver, because if they do, then we can pretty much expect the same production values that we would get out of Supergirl, Flash, and Legends. But if they're going to keep them put in Atlanta, I expect more of the same. I think that we might see some maybe slightly less CGI, but other than that, it should look pretty much the same.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to cut back on Stripe.
Oh my God,
that's a high watermark that they set for themselves.
Yeah,
But the live action,
Just destroy them in the first episode.
no.
The season-long arc is them trying to get back all the parts they need to rebuild them. There you go.
Oh, God.
No, please, no.
CW, man, this is what they do. This is what they do.
I'm really hoping you're wrong. Let's just put it that way, because that would be ridiculously bad.
I mean, Ally McBeal didn't appear on the second season because A, she probably didn't want to take the pay cut, and then B, she didn't want to move to Vancouver.
I think it's more she didn't want to move to Vancouver as opposed to taking a pay cut.
You're right about that. Yeah, no, she only appeared a little bit, and that's because her and Harrison live in L.A. She wasn't going to suddenly up and run it. She's perfectly fine living where she is. Chris, how far into Stargirl have you gotten?
It's been honestly, I haven't watched it in a while. I fell off it because I've been absorbed in a lot of reading and other stuff. So I have to get back to it. But you can spoil all of it. Don't worry about it.
Okay,
it's fine.
Well, Jamal, I think of the ones on the call, Jamal and I are the ones that have watched it all the way through the season.
Right.
And I mean, Jamal, what did you think of that finale?
I thought it was strong. I mean, as far as we were talking about the budget, and I said this actually to my wife as I was watching it, that they put their foot in it. They really went all out in terms of a television budget. They really put everything that they could possibly put into the show. I kind of felt the same way about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., their finale. Like, if you're gonna blow your wad, that's the way you do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they were literally like, okay, how much money do we have left? Okay, let's do it, because they didn't have to worry about it because it's a series finale. With this one, 3 major beats, and I'll put the spoiler warning here for anybody who hasn't watched the end of the season. Teases for next season include Eclipso, which I'm very much looking forward to. The Shade, which I'm
looking forward to.
Hell yes. They still haven't really shown his face, so it could be anybody. They can cast whoever they want in the role at this point. And the biggest reveal, which could be a red herring or not, but Sylvester Pemberton is not dead.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, as we see,
Jeff Winger returns.
Yep, Jeff Winger returns in the very final scene of the season. So Joel McHale will be in season 2 in one form or another. Don't know for how long, but they're certainly teasing us with something with that.
Right.
And
if they play it straight, like, I know what I would do if I were the showrunner, and if they played it straight, and it wasn't like he wasn't a doppelganger or a clone or somehow miraculously alive, I could see him sort of taking the Jack Knight role in a way. That, from JSA when he first gave Courtney the staff,
right? Yeah, they did tease the Knight family in I think the second episode of season 1. As the maker of the staff, but we haven't seen them yet, so it's possible they. I don't think they named them.
They did.
Actually. Yes, they did.
No, they did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who was Sylvester Pemberton in the comics? I'm not familiar with him.
Sylvester Pemberton was Stripesy. That is actually the character that he was.
Sylvester was the Star Spangled Kid.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Yeah.
He was the original Star Spangled Kid, and he became Skyman.
Got it. Who is
Everyone knows that.
Okay, so
hey, if Merv were here, he'd back him up.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So how far do I need to go back on this one?
Oh, dude, come on, do your best.
Golden Age.
And today, playing the part of Merg will be Jamal Eigel. Please continue.
Yeah. Okay. So the Star Spangled Kid and Stripesy go all the way back to I think 1943, 44, something. Your basic, crime-fighting do-gooders, and then when they brought them to the quote-unquote future, they had been frozen in suspended animation for 30 years, and then showed up again in the late 70s and rejoined the Justice Society. They were. I don't remember if they were originally members of the Seven Soldiers of Victory. I don't think they were. But yeah, they're trying to tie all that stuff. And anyway, Sylvester joined Infinity Incorporated, and then when they moved to California, he decided to redub himself as Skyman. Incorporating the belt that he used to wear that gave him superpowers into a super suit, and then was killed by Mr. Bones.
Got it. Okay. This is a different Mr. Bones than Detective Bones, right? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
No, no. This is the Mr. Bones who's the head of the DEO now.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So it is him. Okay. That's who I was thinking of. All right. Okay. That's some backstory right there.
that was impressively done, sir.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm glad that they combined the whole Skyman and Starman stuff because I mean it made narrative sense on the show, but I do hope that again in some way we get the Knight family, whether it be Jack or whether it be otherwise at some point.
They needed to shortcut that because there's just no way. I don't know if you could go through an entire season of her running around with that belt.
Oh yeah,
and switching to the cosmic staff.
Totally. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
It could have been worse. They could have gave her the cosmic rod first. And then all we'd have is Stargirl vibrator jokes.
I'm sure Robot Chicken would get there first.
I'm sure you've already actually like whether you know it or not, those jokes are written and are currently being animated for Robot Chicken.
They did like a Supergirl Kryptonite like dildo joke. Like
yes, they did. I just saw that.
Oh, God.
Couldn't help.
Always something with them. Always something. I'm looking forward to what season 2 looks like, and I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Again, if there is a drop in quality of any sort. But going on it, like we don't know if if Titans is going to get more than the season that they've already put in the can. We don't know about that, although it's definitely going to appear on HBO Max. That's pretty much a given. Young Justice's next season is being worked on already, so there's no way that they can cancel that or stop that from happening. Luckily, because if they did...
Did Doom Patrol get renewed?
Doom Patrol has not been renewed yet, but the tea leaves are looking positive.
Well, it had a shorter season as well.
It did, but only by an episode. Because they had episode 10 in the can, like halfway when COVID happened. And that's why, it ends on a cliffhanger the way it does. Because that 10th episode would have resolved everything, but they had to, they had to cut it short because, what were they going to do? Air half an episode? There was they weren't going to pull a blacklist. Let's put it that way, which I'm still kind of amazed happened. For anyone unaware, on NBC, the blacklist had like the first 10 to 15 minutes of their episode in the can for the finale, and they like rotoscope animated the rest of the episode and released it, and it was bad.
Sounds Supernatural. They're getting like a movie or something instead of a proper finale.
Really?
No, they're going back. They're
getting one episode or something.
Not even that. They have an entire half season left to go. From what I know about it, they're going to give them that full half season and just release it as is. There's only I think a couple of pickup shots left to do on that one, and then once it's done, then they can throw it out there come January when everything else comes back for CW.
I'm surprised they haven't taken these 6 months to just mass produce the Mandalorian set for all these shows.
The Unreal Engine is pretty expensive. I don't think a lot of productions could afford it.
Yeah, and Mandalorian at least is in the can for its second season. That much we know.
And then the third season, Favreau already said that it's not going to be interrupted. They're going to be able to film.
Excellent. Very happy to hear that. And the Reeves Batman movie is going entirely sets in order to make it. So they're just going to do it all in something. Yeah, they're doing
that's what you got to do.
Yep.
That's the only way we're going to get new content at this point.
Yeah, quarantine everybody together.
Exactly. Yep. If you have a closed set, you quarantine everybody. It's going to kill the taparazzi business.
Yeah.
I mean, if COVID hasn't already.
What are they going to do now?
Well, yeah, this is true. It's like they're hanging out by the Grove and nobody shows up, or if they do, it's like drive by for pickup.
I hope they still have a whole bunch of those old Star Trek sets in storage. They can just take out and start using those over and over again. Like, why the heck not?
Oh, well, they have the original series set tour in upstate New York.
Oh yeah,
up by Ron Mars's place, so they can go and film there.
Oh man, it's going to be an interesting couple of months when it comes to shooting stuff. But yeah, that's the model. They're going to have to do what I'm calling the quote unquote NBA method, which is just lock everybody in a room and not let them go anywhere and start filming. And that's either
that or every other production is going to fly to Prague.
Digital extras.
I'm not kidding. I am not kidding.
Yeah.
Winter season 2, I think, started up or is soon.
Yeah. Same thing to be said for, I know a bunch of productions have been, going to, Asian countries that have already gotten it under control, whether it be, Japan or whether it be, South Korea or so on and so forth. Like, those ones actually have, productions back up and running and like sports happening with full stadium.
You wonder why.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings show in New Zealand is probably shooting.
Oh yeah. You're probably right. Yeah. But let's bring it back to the original topic a little bit. Clearly, this is a comic timing crossover because we've already meandered like we always do. But to bring it back to DC a little bit, Jamal, I'm curious. Without having to go into like full details, obviously, because there's only so much you can. Obviously, a lot of people that lost their jobs, you may have had the pleasure of working with in the past. And I'd love to, get your take on just what has been lost from DC. Because of this. Obviously, we don't know the future because we're not, we don't have crystal balls. But a lot of these people, put in some hard work and dedication to DC's brand over the years, and now they're not there.
Well, you lose a lot of experience. And that's the honest to God truth. And it's hard to really kind of put it in a very succinct way. You know what I mean? There were a lot of people there who had a ton of experience, who knew the characters, knew the product, but the market's changing at the same time. Mm-hmm. It sucks that people are losing their jobs, but it also sucks that, airlines are down to, down 85% from last year, and travel agencies are going out of business. And every time I turn around, another store closes. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Something like this was going to happen either way. I think Diamond shutting down when it did probably accelerated things, making the move to Lunar and UCS. And from what Jim was talking about in his interview, the one that it was the Hollywood Reporter interview that he did?
Yeah, it was.
Hollywood Reporter interview, yeah.
So, the things that he's talking about are things that DC has needed to do for a very long time. And you guys know me. I've been advocating for the shift away from, monthly comics in lieu of trade paperbacks and OGNs for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I feel like the model is antiquated because that is not how kids read. Kids read. And I'm not saying that they don't read serialized comics. They do. Obviously, you wouldn't have like 100, one-piece manga, digest running, or how many copies of, all these different series, like Dr. Stone and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have this much content if kids weren't reading, the series. But what I'm talking about is that they're not us.
Yeah.
We grew up in an era where we are programmed to go to the shop every week and pick up these, 22, 30 to 40-page weekly comics. They're not built that way. When I take my daughter to my local shop, it's the same thing. She picks up a couple of the comics, but she's more interested in longer form stories. She's more interested in original graphic novels. That's the stuff that kids read. They want a longer story. And from a price point of view as well, it's getting harder and harder to justify the cost of a monthly comic book. So if you can do digital first as a loss leader, and that's going to, we're being accelerated towards the digital space because our current situation demands it. So I feel that as technology becomes less expensive, we're going to see more digital content. We're going to see more content that's going to be digital first. DC doing it now only means that it's probably going to be another 6 to 8 months before Marvel starts doing it with the bulk of their line, and then other companies are going to follow suit.
Yeah.
Because Marvel has been publishing like double the number of titles of DC for I don't know how many months or years. Like,
yeah. Well, but at the same time, DC's been double shipping for like the last 3 or 4 years
since Rebirth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, Chris, with your retail experience, I mean, for one thing, I think we've said enough times on this show that it's a good thing you're not in retail right now, with all the changes that have been going on and all that jazz. I mean, the sea change is certainly there, and with these changes with DC, I think that just adds even further fervor to the fact that the model is going to have to change in one way or another.
Well, I agree with everything Jamal said. I mean, 100%. In fact, as he was talking about, other types of business closing, I think the pandemic is just accelerating what was going to happen in many industries anyway. It's just going at a much more, rapid and disorienting and tragic pace.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially when you speak about the price point. I mean, when I left retailing 3 years ago, the prices were absurd already. I mean, they've been absurd for years. And, the customers I had were primarily, middle-aged men or older. Very few kids came in at all.
Right.
And, like you said, those are the guys who were programmed, as we were, to come in every week to the shop and buy books, and which was a lot of fun for years. But to try to make a business plan around that, it's just increasingly untenable. So,
oh no, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
But don't you also feel like there's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Oh,
in a way,
yeah.
Because those were the readers that DC and Marvel specifically were trying to cater to, because they figured those were the ones that were the money audience. Meanwhile, these sneaky kids with their Raina Telgemeier and Dave Pilkey and who's the guy who does Big? My daughter loves Big Nate.
I should know this, as I'm always in the kids section working.
Yeah, I should know this too. But
last name's like with an H or a G, I think.
Oh, let's see. Is it Lincoln Pierce?
Yes, Lincoln Pierce. Pierce. So yeah, exactly. So these guys snuck in and started making money hand over fist, and then creating this whole other, and not entirely different market, but one that didn't cater to a bunch of sad old men. Sorry, I'm in that category too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not only that demographic, which I think you've described quite well, and I'm also a proud card-carrying member of it. It's small and it's shrinking just through time and changing interests. I mean,
but it's not. But I don't think it's a content issue. I think it's a format issue.
Yes.
Oh no, I'm not talking about the content of the books. I'm talking about the actual people buying them.
Right. Right.
When the last time I went to a show, which before all this happened, and I was looking around at who was buying back issues. They're all like guys in their. Well, they're me, like they're 40s and 50s and up. And that's to try to pin an ongoing like business plan on a demographic like that. I mean, there was no good coming out of that down the road. So, like you were saying, I mean, none of this is surprising, and it's inevitable. And I would just say that I just think it's just the pandemic has just sped everything up, essentially.
Yeah.
The price has been going up for years. You had Hold the Line at $2.99 in the middle of New 52 is kind of a joke now.
Oh,
but in that Hollywood Reporter article, he said that Three Jokers is like a $8 or $9 book. I don't know if it's $7.99 or $6.99 or whatever, but for a double, that thing better be like triple size as long as they've been working on it. Like if that thing comes out and it's just 30 pages of art for $6-7, I would feel ripped off as a weekly customer. Me specifically, I'm going to wait for that collection with like I'm doing with most of the Black Label stuff, but that's kind of where I feel like that's where you get the value of it.
No,
Look at the Batman Damned and the Harleen hardcovers.
Right.
They're beautiful with the I don't know, the dust jackets and stuff like that. Like, I'll pay extra for that kind of format, but
no, but I felt the same way about Doomsday Clock. Like I was having trouble finding it in single issues, and finally just decided, you know what, I'm just going to wait till it's done.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get both books. I got the slipcase, although the slipcase pissed me off.
Oh my god, the rants.
The slipcase pissed me off because I grabbed it off the shelf, and my local guy was like, "Oh, did you get the first part?" I was like, "Wait, it's not in here." He's like, "No, they just put a cardboard box as a placeholder." It's like, "Oh, you hate that."
Yeah, it was kind of the equivalent of back in the day when you would buy anime and you would get the volume 1 with the box set. So that you would have a box set for when the other volumes came out, but they would market it still as if you were buying a box set, and then you get home and you're like, wait a minute, there's one volume in here? What the heck?
They did the same thing with Dark Knight 3 Master Race or something. They sold a box set of it.
Yep.
And then like you had to buy the special edition to fit in your box set or something.
It was something like that, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a podcaster, you know, as a fan of comic books, I don't buy a lot of comic books currently. And it's, you know, the fact that my job status is what it is at the moment, that most of the comics that I read are either on Marvel Unlimited or DC Universe or, you know,
right.
Comixology, and that's where I go. You know, I don't buy full price comics anymore because it just doesn't make any sense. And kids certainly don't. I mean, today, what was it? I think a day or two ago, one of the big pieces that came out was one of the biggest manga pirate websites finally got shut down, and that's where kids go. You know, I mean, I've said before in this show as well, like the fact that when you look for reading comics on Google, one of the first websites that comes up is a pirate site, because that's what people want is to read it for free, whether it's legal or not. That's where they're going to go for this stuff, and it's a real negative for the industry that this is what's being driven home, is that go for the easy over what's going to actually keep the industry rolling. But when you charge $8 for a book, what the heck is the answer?
There's a bunch of YouTube channels and stuff that are like focused on these deluxe editions and omnibuses, and like you see them coming out, and I'm like, these things look amazing. I would love to have one of those things, but I can't imagine reading it. I feel like you'd have to sit at a kitchen table or something to enjoy one of these things because they're so massive. Meanwhile, I'm like, well, I have an iPad and I have all those issues anyway for $1 because I wait for Comixology sales, so I don't need an omnibus necessarily.
Oh, sure.
Oversized art, I can zoom in all the way in and see all the little mistakes Jamal made on that issue of The Red, you know? Can
you believe he drew shorts on Supergirl? I can't believe it.
I've decided that's going on my tombstone, by the way.
Where's that ass I paid for?
I put shorts on Supergirl.
Supergirl, exactly.
Oh, man. Also, if Shane was here right now, I could actually hear him screaming from wherever he is right now that I don't want an omnibus. They're too heavy and I can't carry them around.
and let me say, looking at my library, I have a ton of omnibuses, but I'm totally self-aware that I am an antediluvian, antiquated, middle-aged, doddering dinosaur. And, you know, and also being a teacher, a high school teacher for over 20 years, I mean, I can certainly attest that, first of all, a lot of kids don't read anything, number one.
Right.
But if they're reading, it's like Jamal was saying, you know, they're reading if they're reading something that's comic oriented, they're reading manga, or maybe they're reading graphic novels to a lesser degree. And again, it's all going to be online. I mean, I still love reading print, but that's fading away.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I gotta be honest, like 90% of the stuff that I read these days is all online.
Well, what's unfortunate for me is 90% of what I was reading current for DC Comics just got canceled. because before I go into Jim Lee's some of the Jim Lee statements, right before that happened, a whole bunch the solicitations for the next month came out for DC, and I mean we just put out our previews episode, and every single previews I mentioned Young Justice and how much I'm loving Young Justice, and what do? They cancel Young Justice. So right away I'm like, okay. So this is how we're gonna do it, DC. Okay,
was Young Justice the last Wonder Comics book that was out?
No,
isn't Wonder Twin still out?
Most of them are still out actually. Because Naomi.
No, the Wonder Twins is done.
Okay.
Naomi
was
an issue too.
Naomi was a miniseries.
Yeah, but
right. Naomi was a miniseries.
Naomi has a second season coming. At least it did. So there will be more Naomi eventually, from what I'm more aware of.
Far what is it? Far Season or something? Far Sector.
Yes.
Even better.
Yeah, Far Sector's still happening. That much I know. Because that's coming out as
Maxi,
is.
I think.
Yeah, but they canceled Young Justice. They canceled Teen Titans. Suicide Squad. Hawkman. Batgirl, yes, Batgirl did get canceled. Batman and the Outsiders, Justice League Odyssey, but also John Constantine Hellblazer.
Yeah,
which
Hawkman.
Hawkman was in there. I think I might have said that right before that.
Hawkman was good. Like Venditti was doing I liked his stuff.
Yeah,
it was a popular book.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. But that's
I'm bummed about that.
But that's just it. Like a lot of these books are critically acclaimed, but I don't think the sales were there for all of them.
The speculation is that a lot of the stuff that got canceled were things that were going to be rebooted for whatever the 5G was going to be before DiDio got fired.
Right.
So that might have something to do with why so many titles. But Jim also said that they're cutting 25% of their current output.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many comics is that?
Somebody did I think Bill Walco did a list of hold on, let me see if I can find it. Talk amongst yourselves. Let me see if I can find it.
Damn you, Walco!
All that.
Chris, what were you going to bring up?
I was just going to piggyback in that. There's so many titles in the history, of comics. Sort of, if you look back, at least for the modern era, that were highly acclaimed critically and had rabid cult followings. They just never caught on to the already granted smaller general comic reading audience.
Oh, sure.
So,
I found the list. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I found the list. Okay, so currently, as of November 2020, DC will have 17 ongoing titles.
Okay.
Ongoing monthly titles.
Oh, that's low.
And yes, 7 of those are Batman books.
Okay.
Well, they're canceling Nightwing's staying on, obviously Detective and Batman, but they're canceling Batgirl, Batman and the Outsiders, Red Hood Outlaws is getting canceled.
Yeah.
Or is ending.
Red Hood Outlaw is still on the list.
I thought
it's getting a new writer. I think the new writer joined.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
It's just Lovedale leaving in
Yeah, yeah. So, but Marvel. I mean, these are just the ongoings. This has nothing to do with the miniseries or the one shots or whatever crossover they're doing. Or this is just a list of the ongoing monthly titles.
Yeah,
so,
more death metal. Oh my god.
More death metal. Yes, there's going to be a lot more death metal.
Why do people read that?
Because Snyder.
Sells.
Yeah, it sells, and Snyder. I mean, I'm interested in a bunch of the death metal books. I'll read them eventually. I mean, they're not at the top of my pile, as it were. But all these dark universe, multiverse tales, they're talking to the right person when it comes to the multiverse, because I've always been a huge fan of alternate realities. So that's going to be right up my alley. Not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but it works for some people.
I mean, I like the DC stuff. That DC thing with Jason Cass, Shiva, whatever that was. I thought that was a surprisingly good miniseries. I mean,
Unkillables.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not expect to enjoy that as much as I did, and I know it's continuing on and on and on.
Yeah.
Tom Taylor, I think, he's a strong writer, and I think hopefully he'll continue to get bigger and bigger projects. That Suicide Squad announcement, and they were saying that it was planned. It was planned. I was like, you're on issue 11. You planned 11 issues and not 12? I don't know.
Yeah. Tom is on my list of guys I want to work with badly.
I mean, you seem like a fit. Bruno Redondo does expressions in a similar way that you do, and you focus on that. So,
Bruno does amazing work, but Tom is just like that. The spider bite issue. Oh my god, a Spider-Man that he did made me cry. Like, it really made me cry. You guys familiar with this?
No, I'm not actually.
Was that Friendly Neighborhood?
Yes, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, where Spider-Man teams up with Spider-Bite, who turns out to be a young boy dying from cancer. And it's just it breaks your heart. It's just. It's so beautiful. but he like Tom Taylor, just to gush on Tom Taylor a little bit, like he is literally one of my favorite writers at DC right now. Like he's one of those guys where just like I'll
pretty much pick up anything he writes. Yeah,
I have a list of people that I want to work with, and he's like really like right up there.
You heard it here, folks. Heard it here first, folks. Jamal Igle wants to work with Tom Taylor.
Yeah, when I get some free time, somewhere in the next century.
Yeah, exactly.
You and Tom Taylor do a history of the DEO Mr. Bones, where it's a day in the life, and just explain how he drinks whiskey and smokes cigars all day long.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I can tell you exactly how if you really want to know.
Oh,
no, but I want to see you draw all those bones every single time.
And the neck bone's connected to the hip bone, and it's just going to work. It's going to work, man. I had to bring up as well. There was an article that Cy Spurrier put out on his website. He's disappointed, as is everyone who was working on these comics that had their premature end. But he was working on Hellblazer, and issue 12 is announced as the final one of those. And just to read some excerpts of it. For one thing, it ends in November. I'm not ready. A lot of you are angry about this. Many of you don't understand why a book that seemed to be flying high should be culled at an early stage. I hear you. So, rumor control, here are the facts. It didn't make enough money. That's it, actually. That's all. It didn't make enough money to persuade the right people, whoever you are, to keep it running, to take a risk, to let it grow, to wait, as conventional wisdom might once have dictated, for the first arc to be collected as a trade. That's their right. That's their business. That's comics in 2020.
But I have a question.
I thought it was diversity and identity politics.
Zing.
I have a question. Hasn't that always really been the business, though? I mean,
yeah.
These are massive corporations. I mean, how many times have I on this show have I raved about Christopher Priest's Black Panther,
right?
Which was, for me, one of the greatest finite series Marvel ever produced, but very few people actually read it.
Oh, so, sure. Yeah.
Eventually they canceled because it wasn't. And actually, Jamal, I have this question for you because you might be more in the know. Mm-hmm. What for a monthly book like the Hellblazer they're describing, for example, what level would tell the corporate hierarchy that a book is, quote, making money? Like what level would it have to reach, considering the readership is so small to begin with in general for comics?
It really depends. A lot of it actually depends on trade sales ultimately. Like they'll collect enough issues that they can get one or two trade paperbacks out of it. And if the trade paperbacks have a life of their own, a la like Miss Marvel or Squirrel Girl,
right?
That'll encourage them to keep the series going and use the monthly comic as a loss leader in order to pay for the production of the trades.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah. And I mean, you are right, Chris, that this is not new news. The waiting for the trade culture has existed for many years now. I myself partaking in it, because frankly, money is money, and also sometimes I just don't know how a book is going to hit me until I have 6 issues sitting there that I can just, read as a complete arc. And I'm not one, for the most part, to, just buy a first issue. At least I was when I was younger. I mean, today, I'm not just going to go out to the store or, make a purchase of nothing but first issues to see what's going to, call to me to then wait for the trade. I'm just
right.
If it looks cool and it's from a creator that I like, I'm going to give it a shot once it's already been collected. And I've heard from a couple people, oh, hey, this is really good. I'm like, oh, let me give it a shot. And then there's volume 1. And I mean, that's how I picked up on Monstrous. That's how I picked up on Saga. That's how I picked up on so many books over the years is, word of mouth and them already being collected.
I just did that with Comixology Unlimited. They had 3 issues of Kieran Gillen's Once and Future on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I rented, borrowed those 3, read them, read the first one, read the second, read the third, all in a row. And I was like, well, shit, now I got to get the trade. So bought the trade, finished the story. It was great. And then, boom, now I'm subscribed to the series on Comixology, and I can't wait for the next issue and, that kind of thing. So I think that really does help. But, yeah, like if I was in a store, I don't know that I would have picked it up or not.
Sure. Yeah. It's the culture right there. And I mean, for people like me who read, on Marvel Unlimited or DC Universe, there's the baked in 6 months right there. So like, even if I'm going to read the first issue of something, I got to wait 6 months to read it. By then it might be too late for some books.
DC Universe is like 12 months, I think.
It is. Yeah. It's 12 months, which if they're going to,
they just released like Event Leviathan 3 a year ago.
Yeah. I feel like if that service is going to reboot itself, I would certainly hope that 12 months becomes 6, because I think that to keep it in line with what has become the quote unquote standard with Marvel Unlimited, I'd love to make that 12 months 6. And it would feel so much more relevant to me than a year wait. I'm
curious if they're just gonna if DC's already pissed off the retailers with the Diamond acquittal or whatever, and these new retailers, good or as bad as they are, who knows? But I'm kind of wondering if they bring in this new esports guy, and he's just going to go look at what the movies are doing, and they're switching to digital release with Mulan. I mean, I don't think anyone in their right mind thinks that Mulan coming to Disney Plus for $30 is a good thing for movie theaters. So I would just go, you know what? Here's DC Universe Unlimited, and keep, instead of the $7.99 or whatever, make it $10 a month, and you get everything from DC day and date from here on out. And then you have my $10 a month. And I will read 6 comics a month or 5 comics a month or 6 comics a week or whatever, and use that digital as, the loss leader. You've already pissed off your stores. I don't know. Maybe you'd need some time to push them to do that. But in terms of packaging and bundles and things, I feel like that's the way the industry's going to go. Mm-hmm. And you've already seen movies start to move that way out of necessity with the pandemic. I just don't know how you're going to keep comic stores alive when the second biggest company is cutting 25% of their line. I mean, that's 25% of every store's revenue, so to speak, almost. Yeah. Well, or 25% of available revenue they could make if something were to make a hit or whatever. That's probably $500, $1,000 per store.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing to bring up, since we mentioned youth a bunch of times, Jamal brought it up as something that these companies are going to have to try and strive for, is to get young kids reading books. One of the things that DC Comics has done is announce their dual interim editors-in-chief. For the time being, they're interim as of now. It may not necessarily be, a forever thing, or it may turn out to be that they're the official editors-in-chiefs and that's the way it's going to roll. But for now, Marie Javins and Michelle Wells are the co-editors-in-chief of DC Comics. And talk about, experience with youth. Javins was in charge of DC's, YA imprint for years. So there's that pedigree going for it. No, my mistake. Wells was the YA imprint. Javins was in charge of digital strategy. So right. There's both of our pillars that we've been discussing, in one shot there for DC. Digital, boom, kids, boom, right there. I think this is a step in the right direction. I haven't met Michelle yet, but I've worked with Marie, and she's aces. Yeah. So it could very well be exactly what DC needs right now. to remain relevant and to get those kids into their books in one way or another.
And one thing we have to remember, Ian, also to piggyback on that, is that in the end, these characters have become these massive multimedia intellectual properties.
Yeah.
And the companies are going to go in the direction that best serves their bottom line when it comes to how they can exploit those properties. And like we were talking before about comic shops, and as you know, we all know I owned a comic shop for 18 years. I mean, that and Jamal was referencing this before as well. That whole model just can't really survive in this new world that's opening up now when it comes to these intellectual properties being exploited in multimedia. I mean, anybody who has a comic shop now, I mean, the only way they're going to stay open, in most cases, they have to carry all kinds of other product lines.
Right.
Which I was doing at the end, and frankly, I hated doing that, which was one of the main reasons why I finally just closed it. Like, I don't want to have Magic players in my store. I really don't. I mean, we were doing that, and some of them were great. Most of them weren't. But, you have to start selling all these other things. And if you love that other stuff and you're well-versed in it, great. But if you're not, that just becomes more work you just don't want to do.
Yeah.
And then what's the point? Because it's not fun. I think any stores that are going to try to survive this, they're going to have to, and some I'm sure are already doing this, diversify, emphasize trades more, emphasize ways to bring in a lot more kids, have more manga, have, reading clubs. And I'm just pulling this with my rectum right now. But basically anything but just the traditional old guy coming on a Wednesday to buy their books, because as was just pointed out, a percentage of that stuff is now vanishing already, and Marvel's probably going to eventually follow suit. Now, granted, as I'm looking at the Marvel previews for this month, it's still got a ton of stuff in it.
Right.
Yeah.
But how long is that going to persist for? They have like Marvel zombies in here again. Why?
because because deceased. You know that as well as I do, Chris. Because deceased.
Yeah, I mean, it just.
Everything old is new again, my friend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well put.
When you were a store owner, if this happened to you, if DC, one of the big two cut 20 to 25% of their line just from in the 4 months time that after the next previews or whatever, what kind of impact would have that had on your store if you're focusing solely on comics? I guess.
So yeah, like. For the bulk of the time, because I opened in 1999, so the bulk of the time I was open, my focus, because that's what my love was comics, new and old. So yeah, if that had happened for the majority of the time I existed as a store, that would have been really hard. Because like you said, you count on, those reservists coming in to get those particular titles. And then you have so many extras for the shelf, depending on sort of your educated guesswork and interest people are showing and so forth. That's really going to be a blow. And then imagine on top of that, if you're dealing now with distribution issues, because now granted, I've made no bones in this program. I loathe Diamond, loathe them, and I don't for one moment mourn their passing. But that aside. Just from looking at it from just a sheer business perspective without emotion, now you're dealing with multiple distributors. So that's just another headache on top of the fact that you've also lost now a significant chunk of the titles you're selling. So it would have been really hard to deal with that.
I have a slightly different perspective than you do, Chris, only because I started working in comics and comics retail when there were multiple distributors. The only difference now is that you're not competing for the same customers between Diamond and UCS. If Diamond were still carrying DC product and competing with UCS and Lunar, then I would say that would be healthier for the business in general.
Oh, Jamal, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, no, I wasn't a little too vague in what I was saying. When I was operating, I wish there were. The reason why I loathe Diamond is because they had a monopoly,
right?
And they treated retailers horribly,
right? On
so many levels. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like if you go back to the days of like Capital and all these different distributors. I mean, go even back like Seagate, all these different companies,
right?
Naturally competition sets in and the retailer, has more options and they can hopefully get better service, which Diamond, believe me, was not providing.
Right.
So, I I couldn't agree more.
Well, I'll also mention some of the other changes that Jim Lee mentioned in that Hollywood Reporter article. That John Ridley is finally coming out with that Batman series that was teased for a while. John Ridley, obviously the man behind 12 Years a Slave. It's a Batman miniseries that, quote unquote, will have huge impact on the rest of the line, which makes me wonder if this is the 5G Batman story that we were going to get, of Batman being replaced under the cowl, perhaps by a black man, which was hinted at as part of the DO's 5G initiative, but we never got full confirmation on. But obviously, if you're gonna have anybody do it, John Ridley is probably the guy you're gonna want behind it. The other thing, that Milestone is finally returning. Talk about something
they've been saying that for a while.
Oh, I know. And the fact that they're even confirming it is what made my head explode, because I feel like we have been talking about this for 7 years now, and now with all of this turmoil happening is when Jim pulls it out. Oh, by the way, yeah, Milestone's coming back anyway.
Dio wrestled it from
This
Dwayne
is
McDuffie
all-
10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
It was. It really was.
McDuffie was putting him in his books.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're working on Earth M stuff, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. And then for whatever reason, they just, oh, no, I know exactly what happened. There was a lawsuit
Yes.
between Charlotte Fullerton and the other partners.
Mm-hmm.
And they've settled the suit. So now they can do the books again.
Yeah.
Was that before or after Dwayne McDuffie died?
That was after Dwayne died.
Yeah.
Because part of the suit was that they weren't giving Charlotte, because Dwayne left his portion of Milestone to her.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't including her in any of the negotiations or anything else.
Got it.
She wrote the Jon Stewart Green Lantern story in the Green Lantern 80th anniversary story or issue,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. And it teamed in with Hawkgirl. It wasn't explicitly the Justice League animated version, but I thought I made a note of that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll have to track that down, actually. I kind of forgot that 80th anniversary special came out. I was looking forward to that. Now I will have to actually get the digital copy. Thank you very much, Donovan.
Good luck finding a single issue of that one.
Yeah,
All this
I know.
seems a little too late. The Milestone thing could be a lawsuit thing, but okay, fine. But John Ridley, they've announced him as working on DC Comics for ever since he won the Oscar or something, and just
like that.
now
Yeah.
his big books are coming out with the other history of the DCU, and the supposedly it's Lucius Fox or Luke Fox as Batwing or
Yeah.
Batman.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll be excited to read.
I think that's more because John probably took forever to write them than anything else.
As soon as black
Yeah.
people win the Oscars, they want to do comic book stuff. It's him and Mahershala Ali couldn't win.
Well,
It's just unannounced stuff that's finally coming out. Three Jokers was teased, 5 years ago when
Yeah.
Rebirth started. It's finally coming out as Rebirth is ending.
Yep.
And it's this isn't going to matter at all.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read it if it's good, but wait till this esports guy comes in, flips the table over, and all this is not going to matter.
Brent,
Yeah, Doomsday Clock was an example of that, of taking way too long.
One thing I want to mention, we have no confirmation whatsoever that this esports guy is going to be taking over DC Comics. That was a rumor that was going around right after the restructuring happened. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that was just a rumor, because it doesn't quite feel right, and I certainly hope that's the case. But
Jim talked about it in his interview, but I read it at a second real source, and it wasn't Bleeding Cool. I swear to God, I read it somewhere other than that.
Yeah.
That made it to me okay, well, this might be a thing, and this seems really dumb. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Until we hear anything about it, it's just speculation.
I promise it was not We Got This Covered or Cosmic Book News.
Yes.
I swear.
Yes, I know that.
On my comic timing heart, that it was not one of those two places.
I know that, because if you did, I would literally reach through the screen and flick you. So that's
Ian. I'm out of it on this particular one. What is the potential nefarious aspect of this person that we're talking about?
Just a guy who has absolutely no experience with comics coming in as DC Comics boss.
Well, that's par for the course in most corporations. They always bring in people who have no experience.
Exactly.
I think in that Hollywood Reporter article you're reading from and stuff, I want to say it was at the very bottom, he does say that there will be a maybe this is what I read. Mm-hmm. There will be a guy or person, woman, whomever, coming in to be a general manager for the brand.
Yeah.
And the rumor, Chris, is that this general manager person has already been picked out, and I think Jim alludes to it. And the rumor is that this guy comes from esports or something like that, and everybody's just kind of like, this makes no sense because, maybe you know nothing about the comics business. He might be a comics fan, but then again, who knows? That could be what DC needs.
It's like post Jeff Johns world now. He's just out of it now, right? What is he doing? Just the TV stuff?
Johns?
Yeah, he's just
Johns.
Yeah, he's just doing the TV and movie stuff.
Yeah. But by the way, there was a Comic Speed article a week ago where Pam Lifford is apparently the quote-unquote esports person that's overseeing DC. All they've really said so far is that this person dislikes the more mature approach to comics, which I'll agree with right there, and that there's some other possibilities about changes happening. Like nothing else has really been said, and frankly, I don't know. I don't believe half this stuff until I get confirmation. Let's just put it that way.
What do they mean by the more mature approach to comics?
Black Label's the best thing they have going now.
I think, just imagine whoever they hire is just going to be doing a Lundberg, not in the office because nobody's in the office right now, but over just like popping up on Zoom chat, just like, hi, I'm going to need those of Suicide Squad by Thursday. You think you can do that for me? Thanks.
I think the more mature that's being mentioned here, Chris, is specifically stuff like Black Label, where although Black Label has been making money for DC, most of the people involved with Black Label were just let go. So I think that may be what Lifford is implying, is that we'll get less of that dark DC stuff and something a little bit more geared for all audiences.
Come on! Who doesn't want to see Batman's dong?
Again and again and again.
Can I raise my hand? Can I raise my hand, please?
That approach has been was pretty much exactly what Jamal was talking about in the beginning of this episode. The fuller stories, the more kind of independent thing. It seems like that's the way to go because you're getting fresh new takes, like Harleen by I can't pronounce his name correctly, so I'm sorry, Sepin Sejic or whatever, the guy who's doing Witchblade of all things for the longest time. Yeah, was one of the best books written and drawn, art all by him. One of the best things I've ever read in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. Well, it was like a showstopper.
I'm going to have to bring up real quick just a segment from the Jim Lee Hollywood Reporter piece, just because I think it's tying into exactly what's being said right now, where they asked Jim, where do you see DC in 2 years? And he said specifically, you'll definitely see more international content. You're going to see more digital content. When you talk about growing our business, both physical and digital, to me, the opportunities are global. That's when we'll be focusing on. Sometimes that takes the form of content that we take here and translate and sell in other marketplaces, but we want to partner with creatives in various territories and unlock stories that feel authentic to their marketplaces with characters that they can embrace as their own and look for opportunities to take those characters and seed them throughout all our mythology.
So Batman Incorporated 2.0.
Sure, why not? But I mean, maybe more stuff like the new Superman, for example. More global characters that could easily be sold to other markets than just the United States, which is a good idea. It just has to be executed properly, and then I think it could actually wind up working out pretty well for DC.
Well, I go back to what Jamal was saying before about, and I've felt the same way for years, about the push towards OGNs and trade paperbacks. I mean, the times I've traveled in Japan, for example. I mean, very different culture.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Then you know what I'm already going to say. I mean,
oh yeah.
Not only does every class and age group read manga, and you see it everywhere you go, in public transportation and in homes everywhere. But
you walk into like a 7-Eleven or a Lawson's, there's like an entire rack of just manga.
Not even just that. Not even that, Jamal. Entire stores dedicated to doujinshi. Entire stores dedicated to fan comics. You know,
and the format is like the more phone book or trade sized type book. And I mean, it's been that way there for I don't know exactly how long off the top of my head, but that's the way they read comics.
Mm-hmm.
And and Brian Deemer, I remember he was saying this in the show years back. How why don't they just do like a year's worth of, let's say, Batman stories and just put that out? That was one of his ideas. And maybe we're going to see more of that down the road. I don't know. I mean, as you talk about international markets, for example, maybe that would cater more towards international audience, but also maybe to younger readers in the United States as well, who will be more accustomed, more accepting.
I have a question about that.
Something like that.
Sure.
So, like, I mean, it's everyone. That's been a talking point for a long time. Like how ubiquitous manga is in Japan, and how everybody reads them on trains and the like. Is that what do we think is owed to that? That like is that something that America can apply to its own industry, or is it a total like cultural sensibility thing?
It's cultural. It's cultural.
Yeah,
because when you go,
don't attract adults majorly unless they're in films.
Well, no, not even necessarily that. I think in terms. Okay, so and Chris, tell me if you had the same experience when you were in Japan.
Sure.
Okay, so we were in Japan. We went to Tokyo, Kyoto, Nara. We were all over the place. We were there for 3 weeks. And the thing that I found fascinating, one, Japan is probably the most prolific consumer culture that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in terms of just like advertising alone, like you walk into department stores and there are videos, there are video screens with ads playing, not low, like at full, they're like screaming at you on every shelf at full blast.
Oh yeah.
And manga and anime is everywhere. It's baked into the daily culture of at least like the city life of Japan. Like everywhere you go, restaurants, stores,
Tower
casinos.
Records. Tower Records still exists.
No, absolutely. So I think that because you have to keep in mind that manga makes up, I think, like 35% of Japan's overall publishing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's baked into their pop culture.
Definitely.
In a way that it isn't here, or it hasn't been here for, I would say, at least 40 years.
Yep.
Like somewhere around 1980, the ideas of comics being as ubiquitous to American society started to really fade away.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time when we were really embracing it again, when it was kitschy and pop culture. But as soon as we started to drift back towards the idea that we needed to take superheroes completely seriously, that's when most people started to check out.
One thing first of all, I concur wholeheartedly on your Japanese experience. Yes, it's. I mean, there's like when you talk about the advertising.
Sounds awful.
It's after a while, honestly, like I was getting sensory overload.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's not awful. I mean, it's one of the cleanest places you ever visit in your life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
My daughter still talks about how clean Tokyo is.
And they apologize to you if a train is a minute late.
The advertising Jamal's describing is it's like a clean version of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Essentially.
When we went to Japan, for work in January, and they were telling us like it's very, very clean, but they were saying, and they were right, it's clean because there are no trash cans.
Yeah.
So literally, there's nowhere to throw your trash away, and therefore you don't even think about throwing it away. You just put it back in your pocket or don't even have trash.
But that's part of that's a societal thing.
Yes.
That's a. There's the idea of the community being responsible as a whole that you don't get in a lot of Western cultures.
Yeah, you can't even get people to wear masks. You think you're going to get them to read again?
Oh my God! Well, and
the other thing I was going to say, in contrast, I forgot. I'm sorry. One of us used the word brand before when talking about these characters' properties, and I think that's very apt here when we talk about the United States because, and Jamal, I'm agreeing with you all the time here. This is fantastic. But we got to sit down and have a drink sometime. But the key thing I think to remember is that the United States, like superheroes, are very much baked into our popular culture, and they have been since they appeared in the Golden Age.
Right.
But them to focus on them as a reading experience. That's I mean, think about it. When did comics saw their greatest quantities? It was in the 1940s, like the 1930s and 40s, World War II. And then even after the war, the numbers started to go down. They were still enormous by today's standards. But, again, I'm going to put on my teacher hat here. Americans are not readers.
No.
We are not a reading culture, period. And we can get into all kinds of political discussions about that in a different type of show and the consequences of that. But in talking about comics, so that kind of ebbs and flows. But the characters, like everyone in the world knows who Spider-Man is, right? Everyone knows who Superman is, Batman. So they're the more prominent. And then when you think about the impact of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which when you really think about it is staggering on a global scale. And even though we know as fans that all the stories in those movies are taken in some form or another from some of the classic plot lines from the comics, the average moviegoer is not aware of that at all, really.
Yeah.
And now when you have these brands, these characters, like everyone knows who Thanos is now. Like think about that.
I was going to say, like he's kind of, especially with Infinity War, he's kind of become like a movie villain on par with how villainized he is in the comics. And I work at Barnes & Noble, seeing how prolific Marvel characters are, whether they are like the takeoffs of the MCU with Iron Man, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, or you see like in the YA graphic novel stuff with like Ms. Marvel, Miles Morales, or even Squirrel Girl.
Yeah.
Marvel is much. I mean, we know this. I'm just kind of saying it for the conversation. Marvel's far more closer to the idea of a Japan sort of world in terms of like this sort of cultural acceptance, whereas DC, it's that's what they're doing. They're laying out all these characters, and I think that like whatever Japan's doing, Marvel is kind of inching towards it through both how they've kind of made their characters accessible with all ages and also the movies.
Well,
because the characters, well said, because, as the comics diminish really more and more, the characters aren't going to, because they're just – whereas we're not like a manga devouring culture, and Jamal's right, a lot of that's cultural and societal, but we still love the characters. Like when I'm teaching in the high school I work in, there's tons of kids wearing superhero shirts. They don't read the comic books, but they all know the characters, and you're going to keep seeing it. And Marvel's very sad when you think about it, because they keep putting these characters in all these different formats, and like again, let's go back to that word. They're maintaining that brand, and they're building that brand. It's just it's not always in ways that we would appreciate being comic book fans, but that's what's happening. And when you think about it in a way, I mean it's very smart and clever, because it keeps those characters. Like Stan Lee's probably smiling in his grave because that he was the promotional man, and they're just promoting this stuff just bigger and bigger and bigger.
If you had told me, 10, 15 years ago that Thanos would be the type of villain that
unthinkable.
Like as like Voldemort, or like Hans Gruber as like one of these names that rolls off the tongue as like movie villains that everybody knows, or societal villains that everybody knows. When it comes to pop culture, I would have been shocked. At the same time, I would have hoped that Darkseid would be one of those villains. And we haven't gotten there.
Snyder cut, baby.
Yeah.
Snyder will save man. He'll save us all with his genius. I have a question.
Yeah.
Just sort of as an adjacent kind of
Yeah.
slight toward, but like, did anybody? And I'm expecting no. Did anybody honestly think that with the news that came on last Monday, AT&T was going to kill DC Comics?
No, not at all. No way.
Everyone said, yeah. I figured so much, but people were kind of forecasting this is the start of that death knell.
I swear.
This is the beginning of like this time in 5 years, there'll be no more comics.
Everybody who tried to spread the rumor that DC was going to start licensing out their characters to Marvel and that Marvel was going to start producing DC Comics themselves and stuff like that. It's like, number one, it's not the 80s where that almost happened. Like, a lot has freaking changed, you know? And even when that almost happened in the 80s, it almost is a term that's very difficult to interpret, you know? Like,
close to Cold War and nuclear annihilation than that.
Exactly. Yeah. Like just because Jim Shooter said, "Oh, hey, this almost happened," doesn't mean that it was, you know, like one signature away from happening, you know, and a lot would have to change for that to actually occur in the world of comic books or in the world of pop culture in general. This is not Disney buying Marvel, you know. This would literally be not even a parallel move. This would be the exact same business. This would be Microsoft buying Apple. Like, it's
to be Highlander.
Yes.
Well, number one, it wouldn't happen only because the FTC would step in real fast.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, because that's like, that is a step too far. Like, it's bad enough that Disney now owns Fox, you know.
Right.
I forgot about that.
Which, by the way, it's still. I'll have to mention, it's still on the schedule, guys. Next week, New Mutants is coming out. I can't believe that they're releasing a movie that doesn't exist to theaters.
Hey, they're putting that movie out so it can be on VOD in about 2 months.
Exactly.
There is no New Mutants movie. It is just a mass fever dream by some former Fox executives. They took too much mescaline. They passed out. They had this hallucination. Bill Sienkiewicz is involved somehow. I don't know.
That
I said the
trailer's
same
just
thing of Venom until I saw it.
the trailer's one entire giant deep fake. That's all it is.
Hey, pretty much.
Also, you missed your chance to say this, Jamal. There is no New Mutants. There's only Zool. Oh, man.
It's like 5 years older than she is in the movie.
Yeah. It's the only commercial I'm seeing on Hulu when I load things up now is New Mutants. Like, there's no other commercial. I'm watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and they're trying to tell me, New Mutants coming to theaters. I'm like, no theaters are open in New York. Nice try. Try again.
I can't tell if people feel bad for that movie or they're making fun of the idea to feel bad for that movie.
I honestly feel bad for the movie. I really do. I know why they have to do it. They have to put it out in theaters. It's part of the contract.
Yeah, exactly.
If they put it out for a week, then it can be on VOD in a month.
Yep, exactly.
That's the only way they're going to recoup their money.
Yep.
They're just putting out to say, hey, we put it out. Finally.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
Leave us alone, Internet.
To go back for 2 seconds to Japan, when I was in Tokyo, I think the perfect microcosm of how different Tokyo is to the rest of the world was when I went to Yodobashi Camera, and this is in the days of like the height of the 3DS. And there were people all throughout the area of this electronics store, one of the largest electronics stores in all of Tokyo, right in the middle of Akihabara. Street passing.
I've been there.
Street passing with everybody going by. Street pass was a thing that you could do where if you pass by another person with a 3DS, you would essentially get a geotag from them. You'd download their character and you'd be able to play a bunch of mini games on your 3DS. They weren't playing 3DS games. They were playing the mini games built into the 3DS and just street passing for hours, sitting outside of that. And that's the community aspect of Japan that you don't get elsewhere. You know,
right.
that you know, when we go into a comic shop, we're there unless you're literally going there to meet up with friends. Like, you're very likely, if you get into a conversation, it'll be a 15-minute conversation and you're in and out. That's it. These guys were there for 4 hours street passing and talking to each other and getting to know each other. And when I passed by with my street pass, immediately 4 people looked up and laughed and clapped because, oh, hey, here's the American guy I just got on my street pass. Like, they could see that it was me because I made my character look like me. And, you know, that's the communal aspect that we really do not get here in the United States and in a lot of other countries as well, that you know, happens there that we don't get. And it's another reason why manga is what it is that, you know, people hang out in manga stores like what we used to do in Borders. The only difference is they actually buy the comics as opposed to us sitting down and reading them and then putting them back on the shelf.
So hang on, am I the only person on the call who's not been to Japan?
At this point, yes, I'm sorry.
I've been betrayed.
Donovan, when we're able to leave the country again, you must go to Japan.
Yes, make it happen.
Where's the country going? I might just move there and stay there.
I have to say it is probably the nerdiest and best trip that I've ever taken in my entire life.
Hell yeah. Yep.
I want to go.
I went there for my 30th. It was 6 years ago, and I'll never forget it. It was fantastic in every single way. To round out,
the food's amazing.
Oh my god! Yes, best sushi of my life, and it was just some rando place that was supposed to be one of the quote unquote cheaper ones. I don't care. It was the best scalp I had in my life.
They got me to eat octopus. That's a feat right there.
No, Martha made octopus from scratch a couple of days ago. Actually, it was absolutely delightful.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did she fish it herself?
Yeah, yes.
The harpoon.
Well, Whole Foods did, and then she went ahead and made it from there. But that's beside the point. I want to wrap up the DC talk a little bit so we can talk about some stuff we've been reading and watching and get into some of Jamal's upcoming works as well. But I think I'm just going to wrap it up with this. Again, we cannot see into the future. We are not Doc Brown. We don't have a time machine on hand. However, most of the conversation that has been coming out of DC, for the most part, even after the layoffs, I still view as mostly positive. Times change, organizations change, and regrouping and rebuilding happens. And this is not necessarily a death knell to me. This is a rebuilding stage that had to happen, whether it's the fact that, it's happening because of AT&T or whether it's happening because the market itself needed it to happen. I think that in the end, when we look back on this in about 2 years, 3 years, I think this is going to be looked back as a necessity as opposed to a detriment. And I think that's where I'm gonna end it there in my talks. I think that it had to happen, one way or the other.
I don't disagree at all, actually.
I think DC is screwed.
No, but this has the potential to be the equivalent of Joe Quesada coming in as editor-in-chief for Marvel after their bankruptcy.
Exactly.
With the Marvel Knights and everything he did after that once he took over.
Exactly, yeah. And also, as a fan of comics, it's hard for me to just look at things as complete negatives. Like I've been reading comics since I was 13, and it's something that I love. It's something that I'm passionate about as I've grown older, as I've done what I've been doing for the last, 10 plus years. 15 years. Holy hell, it's been 15 years. That
game is all you know.
Oh, I know, right? But it's a business that I love, and although I myself don't make the comics, so many people I know make the comics. Sup, Jamal? It's one of those businesses that I do want to see achieve and not die. And that's why I have to look on the positive side of this DC restructuring. And I hope that in the end, I'm right and that you're wrong in this instance, Donovan. I really, really do. But if you're right, you have the right to say to me, told ya.
No, I love DC, honestly. And in the last year, working for DC Universe, it's kind of made me realize that I love both DC and Marvel, but I really feel more home at DC.
Yeah.
And I don't want anything bad to happen to it, no matter how angry they make me.
Of course.
But I mean, and I'm not even saying I'm right. I really don't know. But despite what Jim Lee said in that kind of follow-up interview, I just got a really bad feeling in terms of like where we might want the company to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Odds are I am wrong. I just I didn't see anything that inspired me since Monday personally.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, completely fair, man. I mean, and again, I completely get where you're coming from. I'm doing my best not to be, oh, woe is me, the sky is falling, in every single instant. But I completely
It's
get where you're coming
all over,
from.
people. We don't have a prayer.
If they can find a way to make a comic book like the Howlers from the Harry Potter movies, where you open it up and there's now an esports shoutcaster narrating the book, it'll be the best thing that'll ever happen.
Oh my God!
Drama ad or something.
I mean, with VR these days, it is something that could happen. Particularly, I mean, who the heck knows?
You see Oculus.
Any final thoughts for anybody else? I mean, Jamal, obviously you've done a lot of the talking on this one, but any final thoughts on the whole DC shebang?
No, you know what? I take the positive approach. To be honest, I agree. I mean, obviously, I agree with the sentiment that these are changes that needed to happen. I feel like everything is accelerated now because of COVID-19 and everything else. We'll see. I'm hoping that this 2-year plan that they're putting together really works out in the way that is beneficial and that improves not just DC's bottom line, but the industry as well.
Yeah. And hey, I can safely say, hey, the 90s are over. Bob Harris is gone. Anyway.
A long national night.
I had to say it. I couldn't resist.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Quiet for editor-in-chief in terms of personality when he took over.
Yes. I think because he realized that if he did talk, it would be a mistake.
All I'll say there
Dio
is
and Lee were still out there as the faces.
Yeah.
Bob Harris wrote an old Marvel miniseries, Nick Fury versus S.H.I.E.L.D., that I still think very fondly of.
Well, there you go.
So
yeah, and Dan DiDio is apparently already writing comics for Image. So
Really?
Things happen.
Ian, I gotta run, buddy. I just wanted to let you know. So
okay.
I gotta sign off.
Yeah, not a problem.
Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. Very much appreciated.
All right.
My pleasure.
100% our pleasure as well. Have a good rest of your night, sir.
All right, gentlemen. Talk to you soon. Take care, guys. Thanks.
All right.
Good night. Bye.
Okay. So I think it would be good for us to talk some comic books because comic books are good, and they're not the business of comic books. So
yes. So now that Chris has left, has Comic Timing now taken over as Jeff Johns did the DCEU, and now we get to push people around and threaten actors?
That is merely one side of the story. We don't know what has really happened.
Yes. And
all I know is there's one guy doing all the talking, but nobody in comics is spilling anything about who or whatever Jeff Johns is in real life. And I'm like, I don't know who to believe here.
It's with good reason.
Nobody's talking anything else other than Ray Porter.
It's with good reason, Cassina. And if anything is actually, if there is tea to be spilt, it'll be spilt at some point.
Did we talk about the? I mean, this is the old news now, but like, did we do an episode when like they announced the Justice League thing?
We did touch on it. Yeah, no, we addressed it. I'm not sure if you were on that one, Donovan. It may have actually been the last one Jamal was on. Because I think on that episode we did touch on the fact that the Snyder Cut was happening. And
much to my disappointment.
Exactly.
Comic Timing, CGS listeners.
Well,
now
never
we're getting to our wires crossed here.
Hey! It's a crossover, okay? It's both episodes.
I'm specifying for all the brand new. Specifying for all the brand new CGS listeners that are now going to become Comic Timing listeners on a regular basis, right? That's the whole point.
Yes, exactly. All right. But yes, we did talk about that on the last episode of CT. We did address that. How some of us are looking forward to it, and others are like, oh hey, that's a thing that exists. So
it's gonna be
look on Saturday.
Yeah, actually, funny enough, because we've got what's it called, Fandom? DC,
yes, DC
Fandom.
Which it sounds like all the fans are gonna come together and like battle for the creators' amusement.
Yes, it does sound a lot like that, and I hope that every single thing that happens on that thing starts off with a booming voice going Fandom.
And the Star Trek fight music.
Did Dio secretly locked in a voiceover contract before he left?
Oh, God. No. No. Next question.
Let's get ready to rumble.
It's gonna be good times. Everybody's gonna be ready. Okay, next question.
I'm Italian.
I'm personally just glad I got to throw out my Dio impersonation at least once on this call because I'm not going to be doing that nearly as much as I used to.
There's no reason to stop. He still exists in continuity.
It's true, but that's the past continuity. We're not going to talk about the past continuity. We're going to go forward. Okay, next question. Did you guys hear about Scott Snyder's new Kickstarter / Image imprint?
Yes. Ugh, God.
He's everywhere.
I am a fan of Tony Daniel. I'm a fan of Scott Snyder.
Yeah.
I have a Tony Daniel Flash head sketch on my wall.
Yeah.
I loved his stuff on Titans. I loved it when he was writing, I think, Batman before the New 52, and like his style changed with the New 52. Like, I don't know what the deal is with Tony Daniel in terms of his art, but like his art style has, to me, in my opinion, not speaking for anybody else but me, but in my opinion, like some things have gotten better and then some things have gotten worse. Where like there's a lot of times where I look at his pages or whatever, and like I don't, maybe it's the coloring or the inking. I have no idea what contributes to what, but all I know is his name's at the top of the list, right? It just seems like very, very flat. Like none of his characters look like they look like, you know, he can draw better than I can, but they're flat in the same way that all of my characters would come out that way. So I don't know if it's like a speed thing he's doing or an efficiency. And I also kind of roll my eyes because, you know, Tony Daniel was announced as the artist of the City of Bane or whatever. And it turns out he did like 1.5 issues or whatever. And I'm just like, you know, I don't begrudge the guy. There's always personal stuff going on. So who knows what happened, but all I know is with the work that was put in front of me, and when it was substandard, and then it was like, you know, here and there, all I can go is, okay, well, now we're going to create our own, like, I don't know what's been going on or whatever, but it just doesn't lend me any faith behind the project. And then I also have grown because this is kind of like I don't know, I guess you would say like a Zach Braff Kickstarter movie thing in terms of, you know, comics Kickstarter, because here's two successful creators who already have a publishing deal lined up with Image, and now they're launching a Kickstarter to do, you know, a special edition. It's just like, what do you need this for if you believe in the strength of your own brand, and so does Image to publish a book? But at the same time, I'm also the guy who bought the Spawn action figure Kickstarter from Top
Nice.
I'm outraged. I can't stand it, except for the fact that I'm one of those suckers.
Hey, you know, I don't buy many action figures from Todd McFarlane, but, you know, when he promises me all these different things and he's doing updates all the time, I'm like, oh, it's a good campaign. I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, it's made $97,450 right now as we record this. More than almost double the $40,000 that they asked for initially, and I get why they're doing it because Jamal can say this as much as anybody that the comic book business itself is not the most lucrative business for creators, even with a contract already in place with a publisher. You're going to want to make as much money as possible off of a product to then potentially make more of that product.
Right.
And that's what I assume Snyder and Daniel were trying to do here with Nocturnal. The first of this new publishing line, which is called Best Jacket Press, out of Image. Take that for what you will. That's what I look at it as.
And having talked to Scott about it, I know. Well, one, he's not taking any money out of this at all.
Got it.
This is all going to the books and all going to the other creators.
Got it.
So that's a big part of it. But the other thing is that he wants to use this money, like whatever extra money is going to come from this Kickstarter, is going to fund books with new creators.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. So that's part of it. It's Scott's a good guy. He's a guy that I like, and he's a guy that I want to work with at some point. And it's just I'm happy for him. I knew, like, I could see, like, within the first hour that they were gonna, that they were gonna make their goal by the end of the first day.
Oh,
so.
Of course, yeah. Also, this just in: Jamal Igle wants to work. Okay, no, I'm not.
Jamal wants to work. Period.
Well, that too.
Lad.
That too.
Jamal Igle has enough work on his plate as it is.
But he's damn good at it. So that's
why we're plugging him.
Exactly.
I try.
Exactly. I
try.
Yeah. I'm probably going to pledge to this. I want to see what this is going to be like. And again, we're not going back to talking about DC, but I think that it's smart for Scott in particular, and Tony, and pretty much anybody who can at this point, to have other sources of income outside of just the big two when they can get it. And
right.
And this is definitely going to be that, even with Scott putting all this back into the line. If he can build the line and he can build a bunch of different comics coming out for a multitude of creators, there's no negative in that. This is all positive to me. So that's what this needs to be, and I think that it's going to do good for the industry in the end. So
I agree.
Yep, true that. Anywho,
and at the same time, honestly, from a strategic standpoint, doing a launch like this with a collector's edition, you even with Scott and Tony's names, you wouldn't get the same coverage or the same amount of attention if they just announced that they were doing a book at Image.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I recently, funded Lemire's Kickstarter, and that was not too long ago, Cosmic Detective. And that one, that's launching as a 168-page hardcover, which is freaking awesome. But at the same time, they launched it as their stuff. I don't think there is a publishing deal in place yet. And it's a very different scenario of, going straight to Kickstarter and then working on the deal. And we've seen creators do either or, I feel like. Sometimes there's already something in place, and other times it happens afterwards. I think that this is just, there's no one set way of doing these sort of campaigns. What have we been reading, people? That's important to me. I want to know what you folks have been enjoying over the past couple of months. Brent,
new DC books.
Oh, DC. What, Donovan? DC? What? That's crazy.
Would
talk.
you believe?
So on my end, not to interrupt, Donovan, if you want to talk about your books first.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, so after weeks of trying to track this down, nobody had it, and I finally found a copy. Mm-hmm. I finally got the prologue trade paperback of Firepower by Robert Kirkman and Chris Samnee.
Ooh, I've been waiting for this one.
Yes, so it is. It's real. Well, it's good. It's Kirkman and Samnee. So it's a good-looking, high concept book. The fact that they did an entire trade paperback as a prelude to their ongoing monthly comic is a little insane. But when you've got Walking Dead money, I guess you can do whatever the hell you want.
Sure.
But it's fun. It's the premise is very simple. It's about this guy named Owen who is Chinese, but he was raised in the United States, and he's adopted, and he goes on a search for his parents, but he picks up martial arts along the way, and then he eventually finds his way to this clan of martial artists who can, throw fire from their hands, and he trains with them and falls in love, and but they get attacked by the Scorched Earth clan, and he's one in the thousand. And then it ends where the new series picks up, which is 15 years later, where he's married with 2 kids living in the suburbs.
Okay.
Iron Fist meets Matrix meets Avatar: Last Airbender.
I would say it's more Iron Fist.
If he's the chosen one, that's where I just pulled Matrix from. I don't know.
Well, yeah. But it's he's not the chosen. He's not the chosen one. So it's more Iron Fist meets Kung Fu.
Got it.
Yeah.
So nothing changed when the Fire Nation attacked in this one. Then it's not quite Avatar.
Well, no, it's not quite Avatar, but I have started watching Korra. I got to get back to watching Korra because I'd never seen Korra and it's really good.
Yes.
So,
thank you, Netflix.
People didn't like it at the time, I heard.
It grew on me. The first season is a little bit hit or miss for me, but I think after that it really got good. It just took a little while to get into overdrive, personally.
I think part of the problem, and Hannibal Taboo actually pointed this out, is that it came out too soon.
Yes.
Like if there had been more of a breather between Last Airbender and the new and The Legend of Korra, I think more people would have been accepting initially.
Yeah.
It was like a year afterwards, or like the very next year.
Something like that, yeah. It was a really fast turnaround.
Yeah, just like if the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender hadn't come out and said, we ran away from the live-action version because it looks like a trash fire, then maybe I'd be looking forward to it a bit more than I am right now.
Alan Moore ran away from Watchmen, and the Watchmen season 1 was fantastic.
That is a very good point. That is a very good point, which is why I will not entirely say it's going to be bad, but M. Night Shyamalan movie.
That's the only Avatar I've actually seen.
Oh, no.
I laughed the entire time.
No, Donovan, please see the animated series. Do that immediately. Wash that taste out of your mouth, man. Come on.
It seriously was hilarious. I left my hands on.
God. So the Firepower prelude got you looking forward to the ongoing?
Yeah, actually, I picked up the free comic book. It was sort of this backwards thing because I picked up the free comic book day issue first.
Yeah.
And they reprinted that as issue 1, and then I picked up issue 2. Mm-hmm. And I'd been trying to get this book and Pulp also by Brubaker and Sean Phillips, which I still haven't gotten a copy of because it's freaking sold out everywhere. So... And my LCS can't get a copy from Diamond for some reason. So,
it's all right, man. You'll get it. Maybe you'll get it at a convention. Wait, hold on. Never mind. Yeah, digital it is.
Said InStockTrades.com. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe if they have it in stock.
It's in stock.
It seems to be sold out everywhere. So,
if they're smart, they'll print another one.
That's
Isn't that the whole point of the graphic novel format for him?
I mean, yeah, I would think so. But hey, digital, it's right there.
That was another thing I was going to say.
Yeah,
there's never not a copy available on digital.
Yes. In Stock Trades does indeed have the Pulp hardcover right now. I am seeing that on their website, so that's a thing. Donovan, what have you been up to?
I think ASM has been on fire for a while.
Yeah,
I've been really, really enjoying the Spencer run, and I've referenced here or there on Comic Time that like I never really got over One More Day, and I read Spider-Man throughout sporadically throughout Brand New Day, and I read the slot run. I just never thought it was like good, or at least as good as what had come before. And I think Spencer to me brings back the sense of who Peter Parker is, because he's not like shucking and jiving for comedy. He feels like a character who's had like the weight of his own history behind him. And there's this whole thing going on with this new villain Kindred and stuff, which I think is particularly interesting. There are some really new ideas. He's brought Peter and MJ back together in a way which doesn't feel thoroughly contrived. And there's a lot of mystery in this too. Like I really feel like that nice Spider-Man has kind of returned through him. And between that and like Chip Zdarsky's Spectacular from a year or two ago, I in like the current Miles book, I'm really happy with like the Spider-Man books that I'm reading. I'm not reading Ghost Spider or any of the other ancillaries, but I'm really digging that.
Did you?
On the Marvel front.
Speaking of Zdarsky, did you read Spider-Man Life Story?
Yeah, yeah. I got the trade the moment I saw it.
So good.
After I got every issue, and I mean Bagley's my Spider-Man artist, and I adored that. I thought that was great. I just like Spider-Man. Between that and like the PS4 game, I just like a Spider-Man that like really is like Spider-Man and not the kind of the product they've been shilling since Ultimate Spider-Man. Like he's a child. That's not Spider-Man to me. So like I've been digging what's been happening recently with the character.
Well, I don't entirely agree with that because I was a huge fan of Ultimate Spider-Man for years, and I like the current movie Spider-Man. I need to get into Spencer's run. I've heard some very positive things about it. I'm glad that it didn't take Mephisto to get them back together. So that's something at least. But I'll probably start reading it in Unlimited soon just to see how I feel about it because he worked on what was it that villain book a couple of years back with the Spider-Man
Superior Foes.
Yeah, thank you, Superior Foes. Yes, and I mean that was a lot of fun. So I'm gonna have to give it a shot just to see what it's like feel wise and what have you. So nice.
Yeah, man. There's that. I mean, you guys mentioned before in past episodes, but like seriously, Immortal Hulk is just the coolest thing ever.
Oh, it's insane. It's
so good.
It's so insane.
Yep.
That one's awesome. Daredevil. I kind of sat out of the Charles Soule run because I really love the Wade run, and the Charles Soule one was like completely opposite of that. So the current run by Zdarsky, I'm really enjoying.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because it's been
Daredevil by numbers, but it's still entertaining.
Yeah, well, no, it's just more that I've heard some people love it and some people hate it. So that's why I'm.
Well, here's the problem. Here's my problem with Daredevil in general is everything is his fault. Matt Murdock is a hot mess
because he's a Catholic.
Yeah.
Matt Murdock is a hot mess.
Yeah,
he is a hot mess himbo, and everything is his fault because he can't keep his dick in his pants.
That's why he's the most relatable character who's ever been created.
Oh my God, I can't say you're wrong because it's true. Oh man, yeah. No, that's again, yet again on my list of two reads, 100%. And I'm maybe about 2 trades behind on Immortal Hulk, but I'm loving what I'm reading, and it's pretty much anything Immortal Hulk related as well. Like I got to read that She-Hulk thing that's coming out soon. It's such a revitalization for the character of the Hulk.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want to say I've always liked the Hulk as a character, but like I haven't started reading him till the Amadeus Cho stuff. Mm-hmm. And I did read the previous She-Hulk title, which I thought was cool. I thought it was really, really interesting. But this one was just like, this is just a heck of a book. Where DC's concerned, I'm reading Batman, I'm reading Detective, and like I don't think that like a Joker War kind of story. It feels really repetitive of like Death of the Family. Mm-hmm. But I'm also reading Batman: The Outsiders. That's doing pretty solid. But like to kind of like bridge it over to you, Ian, I also am reading Young Justice.
Oh God!
It looks like Bendis like it can't make up his mind whether Tim's like the Drake or he's Robin again. Like a lot of those stations are Robin.
Yeah. Can I just continue to make the statement that the Drake or Drake is the worst code name ever for Mr. Tim Drake? It is like, even though he's like, why bother wearing a mask when Jean Grey?
I actually rolled with the name, but like the costume was fugly.
Yeah, but like when Jean Grey was running around as Jean Grey, she didn't have a mask because her name was literally Jean Grey. Like, what's her secret identity? Jean Grey. Like, come on, like if you're gonna be running around with the name of Drake, why do you have a mask? Because it's clear who you are. Like, come on. You've basically given it away.
That happened.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
Oh man.
So much fun, but I'm digging Young Justice. I like Bendis' Superman. I honestly do. I mean, I'm reading Superman consistently since Rebirth, but like, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's like a Bendis bias people have, but like, I'm reading his Superman, and yeah, some of his character dialogue is annoying. Like the way that like Adam Strange talks, or the Atom, it's just like that doesn't. They're not drawn like they would have that kind of like cadence. But Superman, I think in terms of his Clark and stuff, I dig. Like, were you guys turned off by his Superman?
I've liked what I've read so far. I'm way behind on it, but I know that it's Bendis style. You know, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And I mean, I've been a fan of Bendis and his writing all the way through his Avengers stuff, and it's reminiscent of that at times. But he does seem to at least get the character of Superman down, and specifically also his Lois feels like Lois Lane to me. I'm still a little annoyed at the aging up of Jonathan Kent, but I know that was probably editorial as much as it was anything else. But it's worked well enough, and overall, I think it's done pretty well. Plus, I mean, he's had some amazing artists working with him on this on the project, which certainly helps.
I agree, but I also hate to say that like John Romita Jr. is not one of them. And I think, and I owe that to like Klaus Janson needs to stop inking him because like it
No. Yes. Don't blame Klaus. I'm serious.
I agree with Jamal. Klaus. If you've looked at JR's pencils on any of the more recent stuff he's done in like the last 5 years, and then you look at what's on the page, you can kind of tell that there's inkers that are doing a lot of heavy lifting for him. I mean, like the layouts and the proportions and stuff are all there.
Yeah. But
just the detail is not there. But Superman for me has been, I mean the thing he did with Frank Miller was pretty good. But I think like that thing's going to sell again and again and again and again and again in hardcover or trade paperback. So you would put effort into that. But any old Superman issue, I don't know. I think the Bendis stuff's been suffering for me. I think because of scheduling, because Batman and Detective, which are my two like number one go-to books, are every other week. I get 4 issues of Batman a month, and it's great. Whereas Superman, I would be more excited about if I was reading more of it, like I was before Bendis jumped on, and we had 4 issues of Superman a month on Superman in Action when they were double shipping. So I think in that way, like it's kind of suffered for me because it's like, wait, what happened last issue? Whereas like with Detective and Batman, I know exactly what happened last issue because it wasn't that long that I read it.
I would agree with that. Yeah. It's because it does feel because like he's in space fighting Mongol. That's right. Because it feels like the whole secret identity thing has been kind of pushed to the side, and we're kind of concentrating on like reintroducing him with Connor Kent, Superboy, which is cool. But it's also like I'm trying to keep track of how we got here.
Well, and I think that's another one of those things that probably would have been cleared up at least a little bit by what would have been 5G. And now part of me is really nervous as to whether or not Connor is going to continue to be a character in his current form at whatever comes next. Because clearly, Jonathan Kent running around with the Legion is, great for now, but I'm sure eventually he's probably going to come home for good. And then you've got two Superboys running around. You got Supergirl. You got a lot of super characters. And yes, I'm aware there's 12 Robins, but
but at the same
Batman family characters are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I found a workaround a while ago is that DC has a trademark that they could use for Connor that they're not using right now, which is Valor.
Ooh, good point. Excellent point, Jamal. Yeah. Huh.
Who's Valor?
I was going to say the Connor, but I guess
Valor was Mon-El.
Yep.
Back in the 90s, they did a series where when Mon-El was a member of Legion 2000 or Legion 90, Legion 89, Legion 90.
Yeah. And then Legion 91, I think, was the last one or something like that. I don't know. Whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We literally just talked about this like a day ago. I discussed this on what's going to be the next release of this because that's how time works sometimes. We mentioned that as there was an issue where Lobo and Captain Marvel got to punch each other, and that was fun.
Sounds complicated.
Oh, yeah. That was the issue. Like, I mean, and it was drawn by Barry Kitson, so you got to watch Barry Kitson draw Captain Marvel getting punched, and there's what else is better than that, really? But yeah, I would love for him to take the character of Valor or something like that. Like, it makes sense. It's there. It's being unused.
That's why I kind of like Just Young Justice, because it looks like Bendis is actually caring about what is Bart and Tim and Connor's history. So like he's I think the last issue he addressed like Bart with like I was this, at one point I was a Flash and all this kind of stuff. So like it's like Rebirth promised to answer all these questions, and Bendis seems to be the only one interested in doing that.
Yeah.
Well, Josh Williamson is kind of addressing a little bit of that with Bart in the Flash run. The last issue he had Reverse Flash go up to Impulse and go, you want to be the Flash again? We all know what happened to you last time that happened.
Right.
Oh.
Yes.
Hey, speaking of Joshua Williamson, since you went ahead and said it, Brent, damn, man, I can't believe it's ending.
Dude, so I was going to say in my plugs here for books to read, I think the Flash run by Joshua Williamson, it's been going on for 5 years or whatever, however long since Rebirth started.
Yeah.
He's the only guy that stayed on a book this long.
Yep.
He's the last man standing of the Rebirth teams, if you will.
Well, Lobdell, if you want to say Lobdell.
I stopped on Lobdell once he changed the title of Red Hood and the Outlaws to like the third time or whatever. Who cares?
Is Williamson the longest running Flash writer? I honestly don't know.
No, I think Carrie Bates is.
Okay.
I think there's still one or two more, but in terms of number of issues in 5 years, I think he's one of the more prolific ones in recent years. Like, I think he might be longer than John's run.
He's not longer
because of the double shipping.
He's not longer than Wade, though, right?
No, Wade.
Well, he's been writing for 5 years, double shipping. So you count that maybe on a monthly schedule as like 10, almost.
How many years was Wade on Flash, Jamal?
Oh shoot, I can look that up. Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah, because
in a Flash,
he's got at least 5 Ultimate collections. I know, like we're collecting his run there, 5 or 6.
Yeah, but I mean, and just like again, like the bevy of artists that Williamson has gotten to work with as well has certainly helped him out very much on his tenure.
I mean, Howard Porter's been in and out the entire run, which has been great.
Yep.
Carmine G. Minico, I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry, but he started it off, and I don't think he's back yet. Who is there now? Rafa Sandoval, which is a great artist.
Yes.
He's been in and out of the run. He's coming back.
Yep.
The last couple of issues. So yeah, great art, great story. It's basically one big long battle between the Flash and what you just found out, spoilers, Reverse Flash, of the entire arc. And interspersed between there are these new forces that were discovered, and I'm waiting to find out why they were discovered. I guess we'll find out here. But he's wrapping up the end of his run, I think, in the next couple months. So yeah, it is a bummer because it is one of the best comics I've ever read.
Yeah, anyone who knows me, and I've said it before on both Comic Timing and Comic Geek Speak, that I'm a Wally guy before anything else.
Ride or die.
And Williamson has made me give a shit about Barry Allen. Like,
how does he? Yeah. I'm sorry. I've read Flash inconsistently. Like, not every issue, but every time out. Like the anniversary issue I read, obviously.
Yeah.
How does he characterize Barry? Because I just know Barry as like the Silver Age guy who won't die again. Like how is he different in personality wise from Wally West? Because I know Wally West.
Barry is the guy that's always late. Like, he's constantly late for family gatherings and all this stuff because he's so focused and determined on being Flash, and he's kind of forgiven for that by his quote-unquote family because they all know that to him, like, being a Flash is the first thing because he has this weight of responsibility. So it's almost Peter Parker-ish at this point. So he's not the Jeff Johns holier-than-thou old goody two-shoes. Like, he's very much the Barry Allen that we got with New 52 and all that, where he's like much more modern. And kind of more down to earth. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So it runs in there, but yeah, the artists and the stories, he's had year one thing with time travel, which was very cool. All the rogues are used in here. He's introduced some new villains. Godspeed, if you watch the Flash TV show, is a Williamson creation.
Yeah.
That has been that arc was very cool because as it's begun and ended, he had some weird reverse Speed Force Dark Flash negative Flash stuff. Who is the guy? The last guy that was on the Flash TV show, Bloodwork or something, I believe was also one of his creations.
Yep.
So he might be the guy to watch, like, in terms of Flash lore. He might be the one we're looking back on in 20 years as one of the
kind of like the Scott Snyder of
writers.
the Flash currently.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But it's underrated and nobody's talking about it, which is strange.
Yeah, but it is going to be. I would straight up say it is going to be one of those runs that's going to look back on just as fondly as what Wade and Johns did. I think that, and possibly even more so than what Johns did, because there were some things that hit with Johns' Rogues Gallery, and there were some things that missed. Almost everything that Williamson has done with the Rogues has worked with me. Whether it be new characters, whether it be existing characters, he's really made them a threat again in a lot of ways, and none of it feels forced. So that all definitely put to his potential.
So Wade's initial run on the Flash started in 1991 and ended in 2000.
Wow.
Really?
That was his initial run, and then he came back in 2007.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
was it Morrison after him and then Johns?
It was it was Morrison. No, Johns is after, because Wade came back to do the Wild West storyline with Daniel Acuna.
Yeah.
So that was 2007, 2008, and then Johns is right after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Pyre did a bunch of it with Wade and also on his own, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Pryor did, and so did Brian Augustyn. Brian Augustyn was the original co-writer on The Flash.
Got it. Yeah.
So Williamson was up to issue 88 before it switched to the legacy numbering of 750, and now we're up to 759. So I'm assuming he'll hit over like 100 issues by the time this is all over.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and it's been, his final issue has been solicited as has the first issue with the new writer. Don't remember his name offhand right now, but we did mention it on last previews. Whoever's going to be taking over, they've solicited the first 2 issues of that, and it does seem like cool stuff. I'll just have to see if it resonates with me anywhere near as much what Williamson has been doing. So.
Yeah, I mean, Ian, I will harp on this for the CGS listeners, but Comic Time listeners know this already. But his other book that I'm reading is Birthright, which comes out from Image Skybound.
Yeah. And
that just released issue 45. I think it's going to run probably total like 50 issues or whatever. But that is this big, epic, sprawling science fiction fantasy. Basically, the hook is you have a little brother, and your little brother disappears into another dimension, and he comes back 2 years later, and now he's basically Chris Hemsworth as Thor, with a giant axe and sword, and he's all about slaying monsters and demons and magic, and he's stopping the world he grew up in the last 2 years in this slow down time thing. He's all about trying to stop that from invading Earth, and then you find out all these secrets about your family because of that.
Oh, wow.
That could happen.
Of course, everything goes to shit. And, 45 issues later, now we're trying to save the Earth from basically turning into that dimension.
See, immediately
the new Flash writer is Kevin Shinnick, who most recently was the writer on the Disney XD Spider-Man cartoon.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
But he's written some comics. He's written like Avenging Spider-Man and Superior Carnage, and he did a Batman 80-page giant.
All right. Okay. All right.
It's him and Clayton Henry. So it's going to look good at least.
Hell yeah.
A beast. I can't wait for that then.
Yeah, definitely. What I'll say is that the story that you just that you described, Brent, immediately reminded me of an arc in the Star versus the Forces of Evil show, where Marco disappears into another dimension and like lives out an entire life as like almost like a warlord type character, and then of course the minute he steps through the portal to head back home, he's back to being like 14 again. and yet he's had all these experiences, there and everything that he has to deal with.
Yeah, this is like your little brother disappears for 2 years and then comes back, and then all of a sudden he's Conan the Barbarian kind of thing.
Nice.
So that type of like sci-fi fantasy world. And Andre Bresson is the artist. He's done every single issue, and he probably will do all of them. So they've started and stopped basically to take breaks for the artist, and he's done every single issue along with Joshua Williamson. So those are my two books I harp on all the time. I read The Old Guard, Volume 1, after I watched the movie.
Okay.
I didn't really like the movie that much. I thought it was just so-so, which was kind of a bummer, as much as it was like getting a lot of press. But I think that was because it was the only thing out to watch at the time. But
you missed 365?
No, I didn't read that, or I didn't watch that. But no, I thought the comic basically follows the movie to a T with a little bit of, embellishments and pluses and minuses. So I can't really say like if you read the comic you need to watch the movie or vice versa. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't gain anything really from reading the comic other than going, oh, well, they really cut out a lot of the past history stuff that was the most interesting part of the story out of the movie. Probably because that's expensive. You got to make costumes for medieval and all this other nonsense. I talked about Once and Future. I think that's very good. Kieran Gillen from Boom Studios.
Yep.
That's on issue 9, I think, so far. And the first trade is basically like one story. And I think it was originally solicited as a miniseries. And it did so well that it's now an ongoing. So that is Kieran Gillen and Dan Mora, who's a beast. So him and Andre Bresson are one of my new favorite artists, I think, those two guys.
Nice. I haven't done a lot of reading over the last couple of weeks, but I did go back and take a look at the first 2 volumes of Umbrella Academy again, just because I sat down and I watched season 2 of the series, which I adored. I love the first season. The second season is like a step above for me. It does character building in ways that the first season didn't get to. It changes some of the story of the comic, but in positive ways, and gives more plot lines for the characters that we didn't get in the original comics. But I went back to the original comics just to see just how different things are, and I really do appreciate them both for as they stand. It's the original comics. The first 2 volumes are very different in some ways and very similar in others, but where they're going with the story of the TV show looks like it's going to tie into more of what Volume 4, which just got announced, of Umbrella Academy is going to be. So I haven't read Volume 3 yet. I'm going to go ahead and do that over the next week or two. But
let me know what you think. Because I read Volume 3 before. I think once the trade came out or something.
Yeah.
Because I loved Volume 1 thanks to you when we were doing our review corner thing on Comic Timing.
Yep.
And then I read Volume 2. I like that. But Volume 3 was just felt like a mishmash of stuff. It didn't really feel like one cohesive story. Okay. And then I tried to watch the TV show. I got through one episode, and honestly, I was quite bored by it. I don't know if it's because I reread volumes 1, 2, and 3 right before then or something like that.
Yeah.
But the comic is such an acid trip with the art that to watch this same thing of characters and Monkey Boy is not really a monkey, at least so far in the first 2 episodes. And I'm I don't know. I would have preferred maybe if it was animated. I don't know.
Get through the first season and get back to me, because I think that you get a way more trippy as the show goes forward. Because even I'll admit it starts off a little bit slow, the series, but I think that it definitely picks up in the back half of the first season, and season 2 is nonstop better for me. Mind you, I was already in the mood for weird because I finished the season of Doom Patrol, and god damn, is that a good show. Holy shit, man, what they were able to pull off with Doom Patrol. It's the comic. In
the Morrison comic.
Yeah, exactly. It is and I mean, I love Happy, but this is the closest that you will ever come to a successful adaptation of a Morrison comic 100% on the screen. And it's, they do so much of what was done in the comics, and I mean, even with adaptation stuff, it still works. Like, do they have a sentient street? They sure as hell do. Do they have a comic book strongman? They sure as hell do. And randomly, it's my favorite version of Cyborg. That's live action, which didn't take much, but still. Just overall, I'm really impressed with what they put out, and season 2 was nonstop fun for me. So very happy.
Did you guys watch
with
Harley
that.
Quinn?
Yeah, I did. It's excellent.
I'm in the middle of the first season.
Yeah, season 2 is great, and goes there in a lot of ways. I'll just leave it that way without spoiling anything. They go there with Harley Quinn. And yeah, it makes sense overall.
I think you're pretty clear where that show is going in terms of like tone in the first episode, which surprised me. I was like, okay, to the point where I was watching it, and I think my son was taking a nap, and Olivia was getting up from her nap, and she walked in the room, and I immediately paused it, even though like there was nothing on screen that she couldn't see, but just like all the language and stuff, like, and she loves Harley Quinn, because of the Superhero Girls cartoon and stuff like that. She was like, "Is that Harley Quinn?" I was like, "You cannot watch this. I'm sorry, this is not for you. There's no way in God's green earth you can ever watch this until you're 15, something like that."
Good call. Because it gets raunchy. It sure as heck does.
Bloody and cursing, and I mean, it's great. But not for kids.
Season 2, there's an episode that starts off that Jamal will enjoy very, very much, where there's a scene with 2 comic book nerds sitting there getting ready to watch an episode of the Harley Quinn show. One of them wearing a Release the Snyder Cut shirt.
Oh God.
That was like 2 weeks before that happened.
Yeah, I know. Like they didn't know, but they knew. And they're definitely those type of fans. Before
that girl should have smiled more.
Yeah, that girl should have smiled more. But also, like, why would I want to watch a show about Harley Quinn, dude? I sit here on the couch with you. You've literally watched every episode.
It was also like, why would I watch a show without Batman? He's like, you watch all of Gotham.
Only because it's in continuity.
Fantastic. All right, that's it with what we've been watching and reading and stuff. I wanted to make sure before we wrap up, Jamal, hey, yes. You've got stuff on the horizon, and
I've got stuff on the horizon. I've got stuff that's out.
Yep.
Already. Oh my God.
Yeah, you do. Perhaps you tell us more about these things.
Yeah. So I did a 2-page story in Dark Knight Death Metal Tales of the, I forget what that's called. It's the
Dark Knight's Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody remembered. Okay. So I did 2 pages there. But it's B-Rex, the Batman Saurus Rex, the Bat T-Rex, Marguerite Bennett.
Nice.
3 pages in Teen Titans Go to Camp.
Love it.
Which is a Cyborg's letter home, which was funny. And that's out too. And then I did a little something that will be showing up I think in pretty much every DC comic at some point.
Ooh.
But I will leave it at there because I don't think I can officially talk about that. But the thing that I can officially talk about is the second Wrong Earth miniseries, which is debuting in January.
Yeah, baby.
So that I'm really excited about that, and I'm finishing up the first issue right now. It's hitting on all cylinders. I'm really, really happy.
Oh, I cannot wait, man. And that is a series that was nominated for Best Miniseries by the CGS Best Of. So there you go.
Yay!
I freaking love Wrong Earth, man. Everything about it just completely connects to me as a guy who started reading comics in the 90s, getting both that, dark and gritty along with Holy Houdini Batman. It absolutely works.
It's so much fun to draw. It really is. It's just, especially for those of you who may be listening to this and have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. So The Wrong Earth, which is published by Ahoy Comics, is co-created by myself and Tom Payer.
Mm-hmm.
And for lack of a better descriptor, it's a what if the Adam West Batman switched universes with the Ben Affleck Batman, or the so the new series opens with them on they've spent the last year on each other's Earths, sort of adjusting to life on Earth Alpha and Omega, but they finally meet in the first issue.
Nice.
So Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man finally meet. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I cannot wait, man. I'll be buying that. I'll be buying each issue of that as it comes out digitally, man. It is one of my favorite series, and I cannot wait to see more of it.
Yeah, no, it's just I have a blast working with Tom. I really do. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, hey, anybody who wrote that much Flash along with Mark, because everything comes back around.
This is fair.
Fantastic. And yeah, man. I mean, I'm as usual, just happy to see you working.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
100%. And I think that pretty much takes us to the end here. I'd like to thank everybody for hanging with us for 2.5 hours of nonstop conversation. It's been absolutely awesome. And, combining the two shows in one way or another was bound to happen eventually, and I'm happy to see it happen. And sorry Chris couldn't stick around the entire time, but I'm sure he'll be listening to the rest of this episode as well. But Jamal, where can they find you online?
You can find me at jamaligle.com. And that'll lead you to all of my other social media links on Twitter and Facebook and etc. So.
Awesome. Brent, you want to go ahead and let everybody on the Comic Geek Speak world know about your YouTube channel and what have you?
Yes, I'm on YouTube as BK's Bullets, just as in the old Raging Bullets segment I used to have long time ago. Kept the moniker. We're on Facebook. You can like our Facebook page as well. So all content goes up there. Both like, comment, share, subscribe, all that nonsense. Plug away.
Yes, indeed. And at Casina B on Twitter when he remembers that exists.
Yes.
And Donovan, where can they find you?
My creative output these days is podcast Questions We Don't Have Answers. I do with my friend Harrison Chute. It's a socio-political / geek podcast, pop culture podcast. You can find us at qnoanswers.com. I also, as I mentioned before, am a contributor to DC Universe. You can find my articles in the news section. My most recently published article was 7 cool things you can find in the Batcave. And my Twitter handle is DonoDMG1. Thank you very much.
Nice. Was one of those things the bathroom?
One of those things was like the crazy entrances from the movies, like between like the Iron Maiden from Batman Returns and the wacky chair from Batman Forever.
Oh, I love that scene. That's a great scene.
No, it was awesome, but it's very improbable.
As are many things in the Batman universe.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic.
That was a fun one.
Yep. All right, so I get to do the thing that Shane usually does, or Murd usually does, since I'm the last Comic Geek Speak person standing. So before I do that, I'll just let everybody know that I am at I_AM_sci-fi on Twitter. And that's where you can see most of my stuff. I'm on Instagram as well for that. But, of course, visit us at comicgeekspeak.com or at comictiming.net. Our email address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. You can also email Comic Timing over at comictiming@gmail.com. You can leave a voicemail over at 267-702-6642. Stop by The Comic Forums over at thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com, or you can visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/comicgeekspeak, or at the Comic Geek Speak supergroup, where you can get into great conversations with a whole bunch of these people that were on this episode, plus fans of the show and people who take part in Comic Geek Speak on a regular basis. We'd like to thank everyone who donates to the show. We really do appreciate it and could not do it without you. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
You got it on Wednesday, and you was psyched about it, going to the volume up. These guys will talk about it, everything that geeks love. From cakes to laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read. And comics, movie, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is Comic Geek Speak.
And there's always time for comics. Ha! Got it in there.
I was wondering to do that.